You were born in the city of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, St. Joseph's Hospital on May 16th, 2001. Hi, my name is Maggie Machado, and I am Olivia Machado's mom.
Hi, my name is John Machado, and I'm Olivia's dad.
My name is Abigail Machado. I'm Olivia's older sister and her favorite sister and her only sister.
Well, I thought you were going to be a boy, especially on the day of your birth, because when I first looked and I could see your hair, it was very, very dark, and I thought, oh, it's gonna be a boy. Oh, it's gonna be a boy. Until that very last second, oh, it was a girl.
So I always referred to you as a sister even before I knew that you were going to be a girl, because they left it to a surprise until you were actually born. But I just always referred to you as like a little girl. You were my baby. You were never my sister. I kind of always was like that mom. I grew up like liking house centers and stuff like that. So before then it was obvious that you were my baby and I was the mom.
Pregnancies were completely different. I was in much better shape being pregnant with you. I knew what to expect. I was off of night shift because I worked 3 shifts at the time, and didn't have to take any medications as much as I did with my first pregnancy, and it was very easygoing, very chill, and just grew forward, not so much swelling anywhere else.
Well, I was happy, but my initial reaction, like the few words that I said was, oh my goodness, you just went back to work. But it was more because Abby was still very little, and not that we weren't happy that we were having another child. We just thought it was probably 6 months earlier than what we would have expected, although we did want the girls to be close, or the children to be close. So we weren't disappointed, just probably a little bit earlier than we had anticipated. Well, the day my wife told me that we were going to have a second child, we were getting ready to go to a reception for a wedding being held for my cousin. And my wife was getting ready, and of course, you know, the typical man thing to say is, are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? So she called me up to the bedroom, and she looked at me and she said, what color do you think looks best on me? This color, she held up a dress, or this color, blue, and she held up a pregnancy test that said positive on it. And that's how she told me. It was funny at the time and very creative on her part, but we were very excited that we were having a second child.
What was your reaction when you found out you were pregnant again?
Not so pleasant. I had a very brutal labor and with Abigail, and it was not too long after. Like, Abby was literally a couple months old, maybe 7 months old when I found out I was pregnant with Olivia. So it was all still very raw, very, very emotional. And I kind of like was kidding myself because I was already 11 days late before I even took a test. So it was like, boom, in your face, you're pregnant again. And it was like, oh boy, here we go. And that was it, but very happy.
So the first thing I said when Mom told me she was having a baby is, why? I didn't really get it at the time. I thought she was just gonna have like a baby doll. I was about 8 months at the time, so I didn't really get it. Later on in her pregnancy, when you could actually tell that she was pregnant, people would ask me, oh, do you know what's in there? And I would say, yeah, my baby. And people would correct me and say, oh, you mean Mom's baby? Like, no, my baby. And then later on, they'd say, well, how'd the baby get in there? And I just told them the truth. Jesus planted a seed. I mean, I was 8 months old when she was first pregnant, and then by the time Olivia was born, I was about 16 months old, and I was summer. So I asked a lot of weird questions, but the first one was why.
I liked more old-fashioned kind of classic names that sounded beautiful in the long version as well as cute but still nice in a short form. So Olivia, very classic name, full, and then in shortened form we'd said Liv or Livy, which was really cute when you were little. And now we just call you Liv. And Nicole came while we were in the hospital because we were still kind of hanging on that the baby was a boy because everything was so different from my first pregnancy. So Nicole came because Nicholas was an option if it was a boy. My dad is Nicolino, and Nicole was just a shortened version of that and sounded really pretty with Olivia.
Well, if you were going to be a boy, we were thinking more along the lines of the names used in a movie that we really liked called Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, where the names were Adam, Benjamin, Caleb. Ephraim, not so much. Frankincense, probably not either. But Gideon was a good possibility. So when you ended up being a girl, I wanted to name you Ingracia after my mom, which is a name basically along the lines of Grace. And I thought that would have been a pretty name for Olivia.
We had names like Caleb, Benjamin, Oliver. There was a couple other ones I can't remember, but girl names was I liked Olivia, and I liked Eloise, and I liked Madeline, and names like that.
What was the drive to the hospital like on the day you gave birth?
Very anxious. You were overdue, and we were being induced, and you were now several days that we had postponed the inducement. We were supposed to go in on one day, and then they called and told me, don't bother, the hospital was full. And then the next day after that, they said, don't bother, the hospital is full. And then they finally called me on the 16th and said, are you ready to have your baby? And I said, hell yeah. And we jumped in the car, but I hadn't had breakfast yet, so we stopped at Tim Hortons on the way so that I could have something to eat before we went in.
Well, that's kind of a trick question because my wife didn't actually go into labor. It was a planned inducing of labor. So it didn't just come as a surprise. So there was a few nights where she was supposed to go in and have the baby, and for some reason there was a full moon, and every woman in Hamilton that night was having a baby. So we did not go to the hospital to have Olivia. So one day the hospital called and said, are you ready to have your baby? And my wife said, oh yeah, for sure, I am. I'm ready. Because Olivia was about 10 days overdue. But the one thing that I do remember of that day after Olivia was born and being 10 days overdue, she did come out a little bit crispy, where her sister was more slimy, and Livy was like overbaked in the oven, so to speak, but beautiful nonetheless.
Were you worried about how Abby would act with you?
Not so much worried. She was a very clingy mommy's girl, so I was wondering how the sharing of my affections was going to go with her, but she had a very mommy personality herself. She was like constantly with her baby dolls, and I knew she was going to be very good having a baby sister in the house.
So up until Olivia was born, I was technically an only child. Now, mind you, my mom was pregnant with Olivia when I was 8 months old, so I wasn't an only child for very long. In that period before she was born, I got one birthday and one Christmas. but I was not down to share any of my stuff once Olivia was born. So we had doubles of everything. I'd probably say the thing that changed the most was the size of my stocking. This was the size of my stocking, my first Christmas. And for the past 17 Christmases, it's been this big. So yeah, a lot changed when Olivia was born. So the first time I met Olivia, she was kind of small, but also kind of big. And so I fed her a popsicle. I tried to feed my dolls regular food. And so I thought Olivia would like it too.